Well, hey, friends, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. This is where we take a fresh look, a look again at ourselves and the world around us. So today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, we're going to jump right into communication. How well do we communicate? Well, I'm Debbie Georgiani. I'm along here with Jerry Usher. And Jerry, I think you and we communicate quite well. What do you think? What was that?
What's that?
Wait a minute. Was that a non-communication?
No, yeah, I think there's a good chemistry here. You know what I love is the way our listeners communicate with not just us, but with each other. I think it's a really great communication chemistry on the program. And that's part of what we want to talk about today. But boy, Debbie, communication in every form of life is vital. If we don't get that right, it's like electronic communication. And, since the advent of email and texting, so many people have misunderstood what somebody else was saying. So we want to talk to our listeners. We want your takes today about your communication style. Do you have people in your life that you just think, well, I just really can't communicate well with this person? Or someone, maybe your spouse, you've just got a beautiful, beautiful communication style and relationship. Let us hear about it.
1-800-585-9396. And we communicated to you all month long about liking us on EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook. And Jerry, I just feel like we need like a celebration song or something because, dear listeners, you crossed over the 5,000 like mark. Can you believe that? I know. So turn up after the show's over, of course, go to your radio and turn on your favorite song and do that celebration dance because yes, 5,000 likes has been achieved. Now we got to push to 10,000. But you know what? We'll just keep chipping away at it. Your guys are doing great. Keep sharing the EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page, liking it, and thank you for listening to that and responding. But talking about communication, Jerry, you talked about technology and about emailing and texting. And, it's so interesting because you're exactly right. Relationships can be built on communication and they can be destroyed because of miscommunication or non-communication. And, you even look at even in your workplace, so many times there's a breakdown of communication and that's where things happen, where coworkers, don't get to work together well or there's a breakdown in work departments because of communication. It revolves around that. And as human beings, that's how we connect with one another. We communicate. That's how we build, a relationship. And so it's important for us to look at this from even the Catholic Christian lens and to see how do we communicate, as Catholic Christians, and how important is that in building relationships and getting people closer to God. So let's talk about how you communicate, what works well in your life, maybe what didn't work well. Maybe you could share with us, something that we can learn from so that, we don't have to live it out. You've lived it out. And so we're going to benefit from your life experience. So call in at 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, one thing that came to my mind as we were preparing for this topic is how many people today just don't even want to communicate.
Oh.
I've shared on this show before. I'm just a communicator by nature. I mean, I don't pass people on the street, tackle them and say, hey, talk to me. But it's just like I'll say hi, greet people. And sometimes people just jump. They're startled, that somebody would actually take time to communicate with them. Making eye contact. Eye contact is a very important means of communication. And we look around today, Debbie, it just seems to me more and more everywhere we go, everything we do. I don't know what it is inside of a lot of people, hurt, pain, shame, whatever, maybe, I don't know. But, just simple things like making eye contact, that type of communication. So, dear listeners, what's your take on this? I mean, are we a society of good communicators? Is there room for improvement? Have we lost the art of communication? You remember, Debbie, when families, before technology and phones and computers, families would sit around by the fire, and tell stories, to communicate with one another and pass down family traditions and so forth. So I think this is really a timely issue to bring up, especially in our culture today.
I agree. I totally agree. Do you know that there's a lot of information out on the internet about how even people who have begin dating, Jerry, that they have they started their dating relationship by texting. And so they built their initial relationship with that person by texting. And I find that very interesting because when you think back, okay, we all know how old we are. I'm 50 years old. And when I started dating, well, first of all, we didn't have that. We didn't have texting. We had those pagers. Remember those pagers, Jerry?
Oh, yeah.
That was so much fun when you'd see a number pop up. It'd be like your mother every day, paging you. It was hilarious. But anyway, we didn't really have anything like that. So we had to talk to one another. We had to actually, sit with one another and get to know one another or be on the phone. I can remember being on the phone for hours with a guy that I dated in high school. But I couldn't even imagine beginning a relationship, starting the whole entire relationship via texting. I mean, my goodness, there's no emotion with texting. I mean, I guess you can use all those little, emoticons or whatever you call them. What do you call those things?
Yeah, there's lots of emotion in those emoticons, Debbie. Come on, what's the matter with you? By the way, this reminds me of a joke,
Well,
So
go ahead.
a guy said to his friend, hey, I proposed to my girlfriend. Well, what did she say? Well, she hasn't answered my text yet.
Okay, that is hilarious. But seriously, Jerry, that is what's happening. I mean, think about that for a moment. I mean, how a relationship is built on that could be kind of scary. So we want to hear from you. Maybe your texting relationship works. I mean, who knows? I mean, we want to learn all different angles. That's what Take Two is all about. It's taking a fresh look at things, a different look at things. So if you feel prompted, we have so many first-time callers, and we love that. And please share with us what made you be a first-time caller. I know sometimes it can be a little nerve-wracking, like what happens? Well, here's what happens. You're going to call in. You're going to speak to Matt Gabinski, our call screener. He's amazing. And then when you're sitting on hold before you get on the air, you get to listen to the show. So you're not going to miss anything. It's not like you're going to be put on the spot and jump in and you have to pick up where you don't know where the conversation left off. You're going to be listening to the whole thing. So you're never apart from us. So if you want to call in, dial 1-800-585-9396.
All right, we will have our producer, Rich Jesse, roll the break for us, and our social media guy, Jeff Burson, just got back from a wonderful time in France. Love to talk to him about that on the air.
He's so lucky, yeah.
800-585-9396. How are we at communicating today? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is electronic communication adequate? Does it get the job done? What about personal one-on-one communication? Let us hear from you with your takes. I'll be right back.
EWTN is now on Twitter. Get short, timely messages from EWTN on your computer or cell phone. It's easy to stay up to date on a wide variety of topics. Pro-life news, Vatican announcements, catechesis, apologetics, the latest EWTN programming, and more. You can link to EWTN on Twitter from our homepage or go to twitter.com/EWTN. At work, at home, at school, and on the road. Stay connected to your world with EWTN's Twitter page.
Most men will do almost anything to avoid deep theological discussions. Well, you don't need a doctorate in theology to listen to and enjoy the Catholic Cafe. Join me, Deacon Jeff Drzymski, along with my trusty sidekick Tom Dorian, as we try and make manly sense out of living the Catholic faith.
The Catholic Cafe, Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern and Sundays at 5 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Live truth, live Catholic.
This is Doug Keck, EWTN President and Chief Operating Officer.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City.
Hi, this is Patrick Coffin, host of Catholic Answers Live. Have a blessed Lent from all of us at EWTN Radio.
Oh, we're so glad you're with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. We're talking about how well do you communicate today, and the phone lines are filling up. That's great, but there's room for you, so we want to hear from you. Dial in 1-800-585-9396. Jerry, I'm still chuckling at your joke about the proposal via the text message. But I wonder, I would love somebody to call in to say, yes, I did propose that way. and see if they, if they thought that was an interesting way, a unique way, or do they regret doing it that way? I mean, what happened to the old fashioned getting down on one knee and, with all the roses and all that kind of stuff? Like what happened?
That's way in the past.
Okay.
Now people, propose on jumbo screens at sports events and, skydiving and stuff like that. It's kind of cool, though. I love the creativity that some people come up with and things like that. But you know what else I want to hear from parents?
Yeah.
Parents, it is so important. Kids, this is really a concern of mine that young people have a difficult time really entering into deep, real, meaningful communication today. And that's got to start, Debbie, as you know, in the home. That has to be instilled in the home. And so families, how do you have family time? I mean, do you take time to just shut everything off, the gadgets, the TVs, and just talk? How was your day? How was your week? And then as parents, be teaching your kids about whatever, but just doing so in an environment where, real communication is going on. That would be interesting to hear.
Right. Well, and I'd love to also hear in the families too, if communication, if it's kind of just a need to know communication, like honey, do this, take the garbage out, do this, but not like you said, Jerry, a real kind of in-depth getting to know you communication. So I would love to hear how time plays into that, because sometimes people feel I don't have time to communicate. That's why people text message. They don't want to pick up the phone and call. They'd rather text message because it takes 1 second to do it as opposed to a 20-minute phone call. But anyway, so it's interesting. All forms of communication. And we've got Joan, who's going to start us off listening on EWTN Radio in North Dakota on Real Presence Radio. Hi, Joan. You are leading the pack on Take Two today. Welcome.
Hi. I'm so glad that I get to talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
I have tried a few different times. I'm in a new apartment, so there's a huge echo on it. I don't know if you hear it or not, but
nope, you sound perfect. You're perfect.
Okay, great. Well, like I said, I just moved to Wahpeton from Jamestown, North Dakota, and my daughter, the one who could help me, is on a pilgrimage in Rome, and so I haven't talked to her. Yesterday I tried to call to talk to Father Dale, and he was gone, and for 3 days I tried to get connected with EWTN radio, and I don't know if I just have bad radio skills or whatever, but one time I got it and then it went away. I wasn't sure where I could get you on the radio. And so you're doing communication today, and I just want to thank you because I'm communicating with you.
That's right.
Finally,
that's right.
I was just lost without EWTN.
Well, Joan, you're very sweet, and it's so good. This is Debbie. It points out another, I think, very important type of communication. For those who want to be connected to our faith, for example. I remember my mother. God rest her soul, in her last years, Catholic radio was it for her. It was the communication that kept her connected to her faith. And, for a lot of people, that really is kind of the lifeline to their faith. And it is a beautiful, in fact, it's a form of communicating with God. I was going to bring that up because we always want to translate our ability to communicate with fellow human beings into an ability to communicate with God.
Right. And I think what Joan's also saying too is like moving into a new place and stuff, and just making sure that you can stay connected with, your Catholic radio station, your local Catholic radio station, Real Presence Radio. That's where you're at, Joan. And also, but EWTN, there's so many ways to stay connected and to have that lifeline of Catholic radio to be around you. Jerry, there's so many, all these apps, EWTN.com, Sirius XM 130. You have iHeartRadio app. There's so many ways to stay connected to EWTN. And even when you go on, like we talked about, Facebook or Twitter or, so that's the cool thing about, I think that's the one great thing I think, Jerry, about technology age that we're in is that you're never really ever alone. I mean, you really can reach out at all times and feel that connection. And I think that is wonderful. I mean, that's the first thing I do, Joan, is when I go into a certain area is I tune into the local Catholic radio station on the rental car. It's the very first thing I do. And I leave it plugged in all the way until I deliver the car back in hopes that somebody else would just kind of trip onto the Catholic radio station. But
anything else, Joan? We got full lines here, but any final thoughts from you before we let you go?
Well, I don't want to let you go already. No, I also don't have cable TV yet, so I couldn't watch it. And there's a lot of times when I don't have time to say the rosary, and I'll just turn my phone on and fall asleep listening to the rosary on EWTN. Or, you woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning last night. There was a long story on it, and I'm starting a new job, and it's like, I can't be up. I need to go to sleep.
Right.
Well, Joan, you know what? Now you've got your Catholic radio station back on in your new apartment. And I tell you what, many of the shows, all of the shows would tell you the same thing. But just consider Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, sort of a community where you can tune in. And even if we're not talking directly like this with you calling in, just we are talking with you every day and all of our listeners. And they all, I'm sure, are very blessed that you have joined us here on the show. So thank you. We really appreciate that. We got another Joan in Boston, but first we're going to go to Nick in Boston, listening to EWTN Radio on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Nick. What's your take on communication?
Hi. So I just wanted to weigh in on the texting in the early stages of a relationship. Right now, I've been engaged for a couple of months, and at the beginning of our dating relationship, texting was definitely played a pretty key role in keeping us connected. And the reason is that my fiance had a roommate. She still has a roommate at this point. And so when we needed to communicate in the evenings, that really was the only way that we could. I think one of the things that kind of struck me about that was that it sort of mimicked the earlier form of courtship, in which letters were sort of sent back and forth. And I think that, in a way, the fact that there's not as much emotion involved allows you to kind of decipher whether this person's positions and so forth sort of jive with yours. I mean, I remember even a couple of days ago reading an article by a priest who was kind of mapping out what courtship was. And he said one of the things is you don't want to spend a ton of time together alone, even in the car, because not that could lead somewhere sort of scandalous, but that there's immediately an emotional connection that can be formed and can kind of overshadow maybe some of the disagreements that might be there, sort of intellectually and with respect to the church and so forth. So I don't know what you would think about that.
First of all, Nick, congratulations on your engagement. That's exciting. As another radio host would say, do you have a ring and a date? Well, it sounds like you've got a date and probably a ring at some point along the line here. But, Nick, I appreciate your input on this. And as you were talking, and I want your thoughts on this, Nick, I sensed kind of like maybe there's a couple different things that we're talking about here. It's one thing, and it's beautiful that we have these, technologies that kids can text parents, hey, I'm okay. And you, in the case of your fiance, with one another, you can that kind of reach out and touch one another at those times and say, hey, good night, I love you, I'm okay, I arrived safe. But, the other thing I think we were kind of talking about was how I think a lot of young kids in particular, but maybe even some adults, make this sort of the forum for their, what should be real meaningful communication about important things, and really maybe aren't as comfortable with the face-to-face type of communication. So does that make sense, Nick, that kind of that distinction there?
It does, yeah. And obviously, I think at a certain point in a relationship, I mean, early on, you need to meet each other, and it can't be devoid, obviously, of any emotional contact. And also the emoticons, these days, I live in Massachusetts. I know at Boston University, I know someone who takes a communications class, and they focus at a certain point on the role of emoticons. I mean, they do, even if I text just a few hearts, right, sort of emoticon hearts to my fiance, at lunchtime or so, they do mean something. I think basically what I was, and at this point, we do have an emotional connection for sure. I guess what I was getting at was just initially, perhaps it can be a helpful thing. Maybe in the same way that Catholic Match, you sort of just you're able to discern and even kind of line up your positions with someone else even before connecting with them, even by phone or by email. It can kind of help in that discernment in a way that, like I said, can kind of mimic the earlier forms of courtship, which were by mail and then later on by email and now by text. So.
Well, I wanted to jump in, Nick, because I wanted to go back to what you said when you learned from, I think it was a priest you said. I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. So the priest was saying something to the effect of in early stages of dating, to have this kind of not physical in physical proximity together, like, communication, that would be better because, like, I guess you would fall, because the emotions would take over when you're together, when you're physically together. Was that, and then it could lead possibly to sin or something? Is that where he was?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Well, I should say not sin in the sense of physical chastity, but emotional chastity. I mean, guarding our hearts, especially early on in the relationship.
Right. I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, this is just my personal opinion because I tend to be an over communicator. My husband is very good at texting, and I'm a much more face-to-face eye contact person, always have been. And this is just me personally. And our call screener, Matt Gabinski, shared this, and I thought it was very helpful. He was talking about nonverbal communication is like 56%, and the tone is 37%. So there's all those elements that are missing. Yeah, can be missing in texting. But here's the thing. For me as a woman, okay, this is where I have my biggest trouble with texting is. Let's say I'm having a bad day, okay? Let's just say I'm just having a lousy day, and I'm texting, my husband, and I'm like, yeah, everything's fine, and I just text it real fast, or I say, yeah, it's okay, life is great, and I throw one smiley face or something. I don't want to be locked into that text message. I don't want to be, because for me, I tend to be on emotion. So I could be having a lousy day at 7 a.m., but by noon, I'm having the greatest day ever. And so for me, it's much better to have that fluidity of a ongoing connected sense of person to person, because I feel trapped by text messaging. And here's the other thing too that always bothers me. Like you were talking about the emoticons. Like if I'm feeling like really strangely insecure one day and my husband sends me 3 hearts, I'm like, really? 3 hearts? That's all I get? Why couldn't I get 6 hearts? So yeah. But you know what I'm saying though, Nick? It's hard to decipher, I think, sometimes. But, so I'm not sure if that helps at all. But I can understand the reason why texting can really be a good start or a good springboard into knowing if it's a good, fit, if it's a good match. So I appreciate everything. This gives me a lot of food for thought. I think the show is just for me today.
Maybe. Nick, God bless you. Thank you. Again, congratulations. We'll pray for you and your fiancé for many happy, blessed years together. We're going to stay in Boston. Joan, as promised, you will be right after the break. 1-800-585-9396. Weigh in on how well we communicate, how well you communicate on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
GMA Songwriter of the Year Matt Maher, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, and Father Larry Richards are coming to the Chaffetz Arena, St. Louis, April 23rd.
One Faith Experience is a unique, dynamic, full-day conference and concert event that will leave you re-energized in your faith, lift your spirit, and empower you to help set the world on fire for Jesus Christ.
One Faith Experience, Chaffetz Arena, St. Louis, April 23rd.
Tickets for this life-changing event start at just $15 and are available online at onefaithexperience.com.
I recently met someone who said she had a sin that she just didn't know how to confess. Just sit down in confession and say it, I told her. And if that's hard, write it down and hand it to the priest. He'll take it from there. As I gave that simple advice, it struck me that one of the things we're most criticized for is that our prayer can become too ritualistic as Catholics. Yet ritual is one of the greatest things about Catholicism. We can just show up and go through the motions, and God does the rest. And even if your heart is weak and your mind is distracted, God knows how to do His part. Need spiritual food? Get to Mass and God will feed you. Mourning a death? Go to a funeral and God will walk you through your grief. Carrying guilt around? Go to confession, speak your sin, and leave a new person. That takes some of the pressure off, doesn't it? This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
This is Al Cresta, host of Cresta in the Afternoon, and Cresta in the Afternoon looks at all of life through the lens of Scripture and the teaching of the Catholic Church. Church teaching is the light by which we view the world, and so we'll explore everything, from abortion to Hollywood, and from the First Amendment to the United Nations, and everything in between. Following St. Paul, we're seeking transformation through the renewing of our minds. So that's Cresta in the Afternoon with me, Al Cresta, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Welcome back to Take Two. Oh, I almost had a frog in my throat. Welcome back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. See, I've been over-communicating. That's what I've been doing. We're talking about communication today. And before the break, we were talking to Nick about texting at the start of a relationship. So maybe call in and share with us how you feel about texting. Because, I really think we could do a whole show on texting. I really do. Because, I can say a lot of things about texting. I've had some really bad miscommunications with texting. Have you? If you have, call in 1-800-585-9396. Jerry, when we got off of that pledge drive last week, you had a little bit of a hoarse voice, and you sound great, and I think you passed it to me through the computer screens.
Oh, no. Well, see, now that is electronic communication at its worst right there.
Where'd you go? I can't hear you. I couldn't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No, I can't. Okay. Okay, so I can't. All right. So we were just talking. See, communication. See, folks, see how that happens? Communication. This is technology. So we're talking about how well do we communicate today? 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to dial. Please call in, share your take on this. There's no right or wrong. We're just talking about what really works, what we can use better, and we go from there, and we grow closer to God. Every time we leave the show, we get a little bit better. We get a little more knowledge, a little more understanding, a little more awareness, and we get there. Jerry, I think I hear you back on. Are you on?
Am I here?
Yeah. Jerry, hi. Yay, you're communicating.
Yeah, and we want to communicate with Joan in Boston.
Yes.
Joan, thank you for waiting so patiently. You are up next listening to EWTN Radio on the Station of the Cross in Boston there. Hello, Joan. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty well. Better now that you called, and better now that I'm back on the air.
I may have to be very quick because I have this is all about the communication as it revolves around my son, and he can be very demanding. So I may have to get off the phone quickly. So
Okay.
if I disappear, no offense.
No problem.
He's 12. He has Down syndrome, and he's like walking around with the child Jesus. That's what I tell everyone. He says hello to everyone and anyone, and he knocks people right off their feet, and they all turn around, and he seems to make everybody's day. And sometimes it's hard for me because it's constant, and that's not really how I operate. So, but I wanted to say though that he makes friends with homeless people. He's gotten their contact information because he brings his iPad out They've called me. I've helped them out. You know, and it all happens because of just because of the way he is.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say about this texting too. The good thing about it is that he can hit the auto speak, and the text messages can speak to him, which is a really good thing because he can't really read, and he doesn't communicate that well. So he does auto texting back to them, so they can listen to his messages. So and it's thrilling for him, you know, when people communicate with him that way. So I just wanted to say that, you know, in an age where people just seem to be moving along at a quick pace, where no one really looks at each other, you know, especially when you live in a city, that he's completely the opposite of that, and it's just really, it's a blessing actually, as much as it is for me difficult. So I just wanted to,
well,
you know,
yeah, well, Joan, and you shared the positive side of what texting can do, and that's awesome for your son. And the other thing, too, I just wanted to share is that, I mean, I'm sure you know this already, your son has a great ministry. I mean, when you think about it like that, I mean, he is changing the world one smile and one hello at a time. I mean, that's huge. You know, so I mean, that's really fascinating that he has developed that just out of his own nature, the ministry that is going to make an impact on this world. And that's what we're all called to do. I mean, Mother Teresa says it all the time, you know, do small things with great love. And that's what we're called to do. So many of us feel like it's got to be something really huge, you know, to make a difference or to get God's attention. It sounds like to me your son is getting the attention of every person he meets and is changing them just a little bit for the better. And that's awesome. So God bless you, Joan. I think that's wonderful. And I hope someday I get to meet your son and he makes me smile and he says hello, and that's pretty cool. So thank you, Joan. Wow.
Thanks, Joan, for that call. We're going to keep you and certainly your son and your family in our prayers. Here's our phone number. It's 1-800-585-9396. Talking today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie about how well we communicate. And Debbie, you've already alluded to this a little bit, your communication with Marty, your husband. And we had Michelle on TakeTwoShow.com post this comment, and I'm going to read it, and I'd like your take on this, because people know I've never been married and you are married, so this is an interesting dynamic, I'm sure, within marital relationships. Michelle says, my husband and I are opposites with our communication styles. I love to talk, and he is not a big talker. He is a very faithful man, but doesn't always like chit-chat. I'm not huge into electronics, but will send my husband a simple text every day to say I love you, or I'm praying for you, or thank you for working so hard for me and our children. Very simple, but says a lot. So Michelle, is just sharing that, even within a marriage, Debbie, sometimes there can be very different communication styles. Are there things that maybe each spouse has to kind of, come out of his or her maybe comfort zone to recognize that, hey, I just really need to work on this a little bit just to make sure that communication remains strong in the marriage?
Right. Well, there's that, the very popular book, the 5 Love Languages, Jerry, and it talks about how some people, need words. They need words of affirmation. Some people need gifts. Some people need, things done for them. Some people are people of few words, but they, their actions speak louder than words. And I think, it can be tough. You said that was Michelle that weighed in on that,
yeah,
Michelle? Yeah. I'm the same way, Michelle. I mean, call me. You can call me. We can chit chat. I mean, no, seriously. I personally, well, we know that. What is it? Women have 50,000 words a day, and men have 5,000 or something like that. It's vastly different. Yeah, it really is, and I get that. But I tell you, what's interesting is I think as we grow into the relationship, and the relationship goes on from years and years and years, you can start to read that person pretty well and figure out that the, short sentences are packed full of, love statements that are really beautiful, and they don't have to be filled with tons and tons of words. So, yeah, I can relate to that. And if you can too, call in and share your take on it, or maybe how you got your husband to maybe be even more expressive, or maybe there's certain times, maybe you can set a time of day and you say, okay, we're just going to open the floodgates and talk. So share with us maybe ways you've done it in your relationship. 1-800-585-9396.
All right, we had some other activity, it looks like, on our YouTube channel. Let me see. I'm going to get to that over here. Yeah, here it is. I can't see the name on that one. It says, my daughter is 16, always texting, but the other day she had to talk to her friend because he sent a text and she needed to clarify. Later she told me that texting doesn't express emotion even with the emojis.
Oh, that texting doesn't express the emotion?
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. She says her daughter, they text a lot, but
Yeah.
here again, she said, wait a minute, I need clarification on something. So she actually went to the person and said, hey, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So that's a little bit of a follow-up to an electronic form of communication.
Yeah, interesting. Boy, this show is taken. You know what I love about this show? Our listeners, you just drive the show. Wherever you want to take this, we'll just kind of follow. We're the passengers. So we're going to go right along out to California. Grace is listening on EWTN radio on the EWTN app. Hi, Grace. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Great. I just have a question. I was listening to you, and it was very interesting to me because it's exactly what I was debating on my marriage right now. I'm debating on my marriage. I have been married for 4 years now, almost 5 years in July, and I just feel that my husband is just that kind of the quiet type, but sometimes it gets too quiet, especially this last year. He's just being too quiet. He doesn't really talk to me. He has his own ideas, his own planned projects, but he doesn't share those with me, and it's just being very, very complicated for me to deal with. Like lack of communication at all. And I don't know. I just sometimes I react to that very emotional. Sometimes I just want to react somewhere different. So it's just no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to work at all. So
right.
I just wish I can have an advice. Maybe you can advise me something. Yeah.
Well, Grace, let me ask you this question: have you and your husband gone to your just your pastor or somebody at your church that you felt comfortable with, or if there's any, counseling available at the church or any counseling? And the reason why I say this is because we all know that communication, the breakdown of communication is like one of the, major factors in the breakdown of a relationship. And sometimes an outside person can really be a great instrument in kind of letting both parties see, how to better that, or the tools that can work, that can make both parties feel satisfied. That's what I was talking about, the 5 love languages. That's a great book, the 5 love languages. And that really,
right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, we have been going to our Catholic therapist for couples, and we were doing great for the first sessions until, well, he decided to quit. He didn't find it very comfortable for him, something he didn't want to do at that moment. So we quit. But I just don't know. It's just while we were doing the counseling, it was doing good. It was going well during the counseling, during the session. But when we get back to the house, it was again
different. Yeah.
The same situation at home, yes, and it seems like it's been there forever, but it's just a year and a half, something like that.
Right.
And it's very challenging. Yes, it is.
Well, here's the thing, though, Grace. You're not alone, okay? There's, thousands and thousands and thousands of relationships very similar to yours where, there's just different communication styles and that's not fully, maybe even both parties aren't fully satisfied in the communication styles. But here's the thing. There's so many resources out there now. I mean, there is so many marriage help books. There's so many counseling services and so many different sources out there, even just on the internet, that can help with bridging that gap of different communication styles. Here's the thing you don't want to do, and I can say this from experience. You don't want to harbor the sadness or harbor the feelings, and that will lead to, feeling resentful and stuff. It just naturally will, because if you're not getting what you need, it just starts to stuff inside of you. So you don't want that to happen. And also you don't want the reverse to happen. You don't want to, somehow act out, and then it makes the communication even worse, and so you don't want that either. What you want to do is find the resources that both you and your husband feel the most comfortable with, but they are out there. One of the things that happens, though, Grace, is one or both parties tend to give up looking, and then that's when all yucky feelings start settling in. So you don't want that to happen. There's resources out there. So that's what I would just encourage. If you can, it sounds like he was open to going to counseling. Maybe it didn't fit for him, but maybe there might be a different resource or a different counseling method or a different avenue that he might feel more comfortable with, and he'll start to open up, because it sounds like it's stuff that he also has to work through and process. And so that's why, the thing that we've got to remember in this world is that we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing, and we're constantly needing to grow closer to God. And so that's our roles, especially in marriage. And so by you trying to bring you two together in a better communication style, by you two, by you trying to get you two to really, meet each other in that special way, that's a great thing. As long as it's done in a secure, welcoming way where both of you feel comfortable doing it. But I would say let's all pray, that you find the resources, or maybe he even finds the resources and he brings them to you and says, Grace, let's try this, or whatever. But let's pray and pray that happens, because both of you should feel like you have good communication and feel solid in it, Grace.
Grace, thank you so much for joining us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We appreciate the call very much. Kim in Hartford, Connecticut, we'll get to you right after. We got to get a short little break in here. And as we go into the break, Debbie and I want to just tell you again, we mentioned this a few times on the show, about a wonderful book that EWTN has put out, Mother Angelica. Most people have heard of her, heard her on the radio, seen her on TV. They still run the classic programs, even though she's not been able to be live on TV for many years. But Debbie, the wisdom and the spiritual insights and the prayers that she assembled over decades, people have asked for. They've wanted, hey, where can we get more of this? And so EWTN has put together a book, Praying with Mother Angelica, and it's her meditations, her personal meditations on the Rosary, the Way of the Cross, and other prayers. And I can't think of a better time than during Lent for people to get a copy of this.
I love it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's hardbound. It has a beautiful picture of Mother Angelica on the front, and I pray with it every morning in my morning prayers, and I would encourage you, dear listeners, to get it as well. It's in the EWTN Religious Catalog, so it's is it EWTNRC.com? Is that it?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, I got it right. See, I'm memorizing all these web addresses. This is awesome. But yeah, pick up the book, but pick up one for yourself and maybe one as a gift, because it's really, really quite beautiful, and I would definitely encourage you having one. Okay.
Very good. Hey, you know what we're going to do?
What's that?
This is rare for us, but we had an opportunity. I had an opportunity yesterday to talk with Cyrus Narasta. He is the producer and screenwriter of a new movie that's going to be debuting tomorrow. So rather than take our break right now, here toward the end of this program, I wanted to just play this interview for our listeners, because The Young Messiah, it talks about and it features Jesus and his life right around the age of 7. Okay, we see a lot of movies about the birth of Jesus, his young life, a lot of movies about the end of his life and his suffering and so forth. Cyrus Narasta has put together really a masterful movie. He's been on Raymond Arroyo the world over, and I had a chance to talk with him a little bit yesterday, and let's see, got to get in going quickly. Okay, I think we have that interview ready right now, so let's hear what Cyrus has to say about The Young Messiah. Cyrus, thanks so much for joining us and talking a little bit about The Young Messiah. I'm hearing a lot about it. I've got a link to the trailer. I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I know you're getting a lot of good exposure for the movie, which is opening on Friday. Tell us about it.
Well, it's the greatest story never told, Jerry. It's about the lost year of Jesus. Well, there are many lost years of Jesus' life, but we focus on him at age 7. and it's really sort of revealing how he came to the full comprehension of who he is. It's a what if imagining 1 year in the boyhood of Jesus.
Fantastic. And this is interesting because, a lot of this is, like you said, not recorded in Scripture. So what sources or what input did you have from, say, religious or theological advisors, so to speak, to put this together?
A ton. We got a bunch of great advisors on here, theologians, biblical scholars, pastors, priests, even friends, read early drafts of the script. We talked things through. They raised any red flags that were there. I wanted to do a reverential, respectful movie that I think is a beautiful story. It's based on a best-selling novel by Anne Rice that was published over 10 years ago, which was also met with some skepticism. But once the book arrived and people started reading it, it was embraced. And that's kind of been the routine for us, because we've done a bunch of advanced screenings for religious influencers around the country, because we opened Friday and nationwide, and so many have endorsed the film. Tons of cross-denominational support, Focus on the Family, Campus Crusade, Cardinal Dolan, the Southern Baptist Convention, Jerry Hunt. I mean, Johnny Hunt, excuse me. We just gotten a ton of support, and more even than we expected, and far less resistance than we expected, considering we're basically doing a work of fiction that is kind of informed conjecture. I'd put it that way.
Very good. Talking with Cyrus Nowrasteh. He is the director and screenwriter of Young Messiah, opening Friday. You will find all the information you need at theyoungmessiah.com. Get the in there. theyoungmessiah.com, opening March 11th. We certainly encourage you to see the movie. Cyrus has been on the world over with Raymond Arroyo and many other EWTN programs. I'm intrigued at the 7-year-old Jesus that you chose here, Cyrus, and why I am is because you mentioned a minute ago that he's kind of grappling with who he is, presumably in his human nature, and as Catholic Christians, of course, we believe that 7 is right around the age of reason when we kind of start to make sense of things. Was there a purposefulness to that?
Absolutely. That's when children have a sense of their mortality or are starting to inquire. This very special child knows there's something different about him. He just hasn't completely come to the full comprehension of it, and we see how he comes to that. And it's really inspiring for me to watch children in the advanced screenings that we've had watch this movie and see a Jesus that's like them, a child, running, playing, laughing, curious about the world, just like they are. So often for young children, the only image of Jesus is on the cross. Mm-hmm. And this is sort of a different way to relate to him and to connect.
I'm curious about how you portray Mary and Joseph in this, because, as the kind of tongue-in-cheek saying always goes, Cyrus, they weren't raising, the kid down the street. They're raising the Son of God. So, how do you portray them as sort of kind of trying to make sense of all this? Having the Messiah as their child.
Well, it's a tremendous burden on them, but they love this child and they want him to have a regular childhood and to be, a normal kid, but he's not. He's a very special child. He's the Son of God. So they feel this incredible responsibility to protect him and to nurture him and to raise him.
Yeah, you bring the devil into this too, which is interesting. I know he's featured at various points in the film, but maybe not in the manner that some people would think. So talk about the ways that you tried to bring the devil into this portrait of a young 7-year-old Jesus.
Well, the idea of this antagonist who is sort of tracking and watching this child and aware of who he is, and who he's going to grow up to be, is really a fascinating one dramatically. You've got this lurking antagonist there all the time, and only the child can see him. And I think people find it really really fascinating. And it's a palpable kind of presence that he has throughout the movie.
We're talking here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie with Cyrus Nowrasteh. He is the director and also the screenwriter for Young Messiah, opening in theaters on Friday. You will find details at theyoungmessiah.com. Talk about the portrait of the family bond with Jesus and Mary and Joseph. Sometimes we tend to think that, Mary was just kind of like this instrument, this vessel whom Jesus passed through, and once he was here, they sort of, are off to the side and out of the scene. But, I mean, this was a very real family that had to have a deep, deep bond of love.
Oh, yeah, and I think parents will really see that in the movie and sort of connect with that, seeing how these two love and support each other, how they walk through life's trials and challenges together. They care not only for one another, but also for the extended family that is part of the journey in the movie, the cousins and the uncle, and and also their response to those who are hurting, those who are needy, and I think it's a window into the Holy Family that you haven't seen in any other movie, because they're real and relatable people.
Well, finally, Cyrus, I wish we had more time. This is fascinating. I can't wait to see the movie. But, as far as a takeaway for those who go see the movie, obviously every movie has got something that you want people to take away from it. The Passion of the Christ, various other movies about Jesus' life. Now this one's about, a boy, a 7-year-old Jesus. So what would you like people saying as they walk out of the theater, I guess?
Well, look, if they are entertained and moved and talking about Jesus and talking about this very special family as they're walking out of the theater, that's more than I could ask for. I think that this is a family movie. It's for the whole family. And I hope people see that that's kind of what it's about as well.
Outstanding. Well, we wish it all the best, and we're happy to give at least just a moment or two of exposure to it here. The Young Messiah opening in theaters Friday, and you will find details at theyoungmessiah.com. Cyrus Nowrasteh, thank you. Good luck with it, and congratulations. Hope it's a huge success.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye. And again, that is theyoungmessiah.com. Debbie, if it's in a theater near you, go see it.
I can't wait to see it, Jerry. I'm so glad we communicated that to everybody.
Yeah,
the Young Messiah. There you go. Tomorrow's show, dear listeners, no more meetings. If you're as sick of meetings as I am. Are you, Jerry?
You can say we.
we are. Then join us tomorrow. We can't wait to be with you. But until then, dear listeners, have a beautiful and blessed day. See you tomorrow.